Okay, so I'm dazzled and confused. I'm starting from the starting point that the state of the art is absolutely dazzling. Some of our audiences are dazzled. Some audiences are completely blinded by the light and quite confused. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about today. I started off to demonstrate my case with a little bit of research and a little bit of evidence, as you'd expect from all good audience development agencies. And I asked my colleagues in the pub what their dazzled moments of the last few years have been. Here's Dan. He was dazzled by Right to the Jam Jar because he thought it was very timely. Riots are the thing this year, obviously. So he was looking for that. Whereas my colleague Pac, looking for something quite different, he was dazzled by Lang Lang at the Barbican Centre. Lang Lang's a huge star in China. He said you just had to be there. On the other hand, a complete surprise from my lovely colleague Helen, I think is up next, who's here in the crowd today, who's head of community engagement for us. And she, goodness, I thought this was a quick one. There's Helen, and she surprised me by saying that watercolour at Tate Britain was her favourite thing of the day, largely because for once the Tate wasn't telling me what to think, so quite low level of captioning, which actually is very interesting in the light of what our colleague Max then proffered at his favourite suggestion, which was a surprising love of Rodchenko and Popova at Tate Modern, because there was so much context and information, it brought the whole thing alive with a complete cultural experience. So this is, I didn't prompt them, this is all, it wasn't quite as dazzling as Johnny Clark at the Kentish Town Forum, however, he had to say he wanted to have both things in there a bit. Moving on to some of my other colleagues, suddenly some of us, our choices are rather more driven by lifestyle. Richard said the only thing he gets to see anymore these days is outdoor art, largely things that he can drag his children away with for probably about 2 minutes before they start screaming. So environmental art has become his passion. Lifestyle has driven that. In the same way that lifestyle changes have driven changes in Penny's cultural habits. I think that's Penny's here today as well, head of marketing services. She used to go and see lots of serious stuff in serious places. Now mostly she goes and sees outdoor work. But the good news is, so much better quality of that work. Lovely production of the Iron Man from Grey Eye there at the Greenwich Docklands Festival. But lots of changes in terms of her willingness to commit time and money up front when you've got small children. Same thing for me. My favourite was Cat in the Hat, directed by Katie Mitchell, grown-up director, doing children's work, perfect combination. Anyway, my point really here is dazzling array of stuff, dazzling set of choices for us to tap into. Luckily, my colleagues and I we know how to be dazzled. We know how to find the stuff that meets our very, very different needs at different times. We're a narrow sample, but boy, do we have different needs. I now want to tell you a quick story about some prose on the underground rather than poem on the underground. A moment with Audiences South, as usual, provoking the best kind of thinking. We were on a train journey rattling from Hammersmith, and I had a seminal moment. Ada and James started talking about what do we do about the second 20%. The second 20% has become kind of shorthand for me that has driven much of Audiences London's work over the last 6 years. Let me explain. Most of our work as arts organisations focuses on the creme de la creme. Let's call them the top 20% of the population who are interested in what we do. Certainly in London it's 20%. I think outside of London we now know it's 10%. The top 20%. The rest of our energies, when we think about developing audiences, we tend to spend on the bottom 20%. I don't want to say the dregs. Let's think of them as being the last bit of sauce to come out of the bottle. Actually, this is not a great way, not a sustainable way to think about really changing the way that people engage with the arts and changing who engages with the arts. If we really want to make a difference, we've said then, and I still believe now, we have to think about the second 20%, the rich body in the bottle, if you like. What we now know, of course, the world has caught up with us and everyone's quite interested in the somewhat engaged. You know those somewhat engaged people who have had propensity to come and engage more with us. It's more like 60% of the population is the good news. We know quite a lot about them. We've spent a long time at Audiences London trying to get to know these people and to understand what makes them tick. And I'm going to let you into a secret. We now believe that the single greatest barrier for those people, that second 20% or 60%, the biggest, greatest barrier for them is they cannot see the wood for the trees. So what we're seeing is that people are literally dazzled by the choices that are available to them. They don't know how to find the information they want. They don't know how to differentiate from one thing from another. So instead of walking into our venues in a sort of delightful, chosen way and getting on the first rung of that loyalty ladder, often they're randomly arriving on the head of a snake and sliding right down again. So what do we do about it? So certainly, in my view, we need to do some very creative navigation. We need to think carefully about helping people to find their way to the right things. We need to think about differentiation. We need to think about making connections in the right way. We need to think about intelligent signposting. Navigation is where it's at, and I genuinely believe the most important way we can do that is to collaborate. We really need to work together to make that happen. We need to create joint offers. We need to make a much bigger splash in the public imagination by working together. And we need to make it, we need to be able to articulate what's good about some of the things we do and how the ecology is different, where different people can make an entry. And I think in a way, you start to kind of close that gap between the nonsense of popular, high art and low art in the same way. A little example of this, we work with 12 theatres in London to sort of break down those usual competitive rules and start thinking about the needs of the audience. Have a look at Taste Theatre, that's what's come out of it. As an audience member, you can go to Taste Theatre, say what kind of person you are and what you're interested in, and they will help you to find the right offer for you, rather than starting with them, I'm Mel Mead and I'm doing this. Now you can say, I'm me and I'd like to do this. But it's not just about promotion. Shelf life, to me, is a hugely important idea. So that second 20%, 60% are a massive opportunity for us in the arts. They're the people to whom we can really go to capitalise on our successes. They are hungry for our work, they often say they miss the really good stuff. And we have an opportunity to build successfully by repertory, repetition, recycling our work in a completely different way. We need a new model of distribution. And that is where I believe the rise of the festival has come along, because it is a completely different model of distribution. And at the festival, you get a very narrow, manageable slice. It's curated for you, but you have a sense of freedom. You have the sense that you can do what you like, but actually it's been very carefully put together. You have a mixture of high culture and low culture, you have a mixture of high risk and low risk. It really works brilliantly. So I say, let us dazzle our audiences to the point of delight. Please don't let's dazzle them to the point of blindness. Thank you.